Hey everyone, it's Braden again, Airless Quill 9. I'm taking a look at this video that dropped earlier today. It's about new feats, backgrounds, and species in the 2024 Player's Handbook. So let's give it a listen, and I'll give you my thoughts as it's playing.
So when you're making your character now, you will first choose your class, the most important choice you make for your character, and then you will flesh out your character's origin. And so we like to think of it as you might decide, I want to be a fighter, or I want to be a rogue, or a cleric, or a wizard. And then you think, well, how did I get there? What did I do before I was a member of that class? And what do I know about my character's childhood? And so it's when you start pondering those questions that you turn toward the character origins chapter. And you will essentially be going back in time in your character's backstory. So again, you start with your class, then you'll ponder, well, what was my character's background? And background is all about not only what you did prior to becoming an adventurer, but also where you did it. Were you a sailor? Were you a criminal? Were you an acolyte in a temple? Were you a sage? And then you keep going back in time in your character's origin to your birth. And that's when you then ponder your character's species. And your species choice and your background choice together combine to give you a number of critical game capabilities that will really help flesh out your character. Background has far more weight for your character now than it did in the 2014 rules. People in the Unearthed Arcana process got to see
Yeah.
a preview of this where, in
Mhm.
addition to giving you proficiencies, as backgrounds previously did, backgrounds also now all give you a feat at first level. They also determine ability score bonuses for you when you make your character. And these are ability score bonuses that really are rising up out of how your characters spent their time prior to embarking on the wilds of adventure. And those two things in particular, the ability score adjustments that backgrounds bring, as well as the feat, mean your background will have an effect on your character for your entire career. And that was something that was not necessarily the case in 2014 backgrounds, except for perhaps the proficiencies you got, where
Right.
you would still enjoy those throughout your career. But now there are more parts of your character that are forever affected by your character's background. Now, to support the use of feats at first level, we have now divided feats up into categories because we don't want a first level character to be plunged into the deep end of the
Yeah.
feat pool. We want you to be able to sample feats and to have that sampling be curated so that the feat you get from your background is from a special selection of feats that are appropriate for a starting character.
So I will say I do enjoy the new design of backgrounds, having the ability scores be connected to those because it does feel like a better place for them to be. I mean, specifically, the ability score increases is what they're talking about. That just makes a lot more sense from a narrative perspective. So I don't know if this would be an option, but if there's something like a performer background, it would make sense for dexterity and charisma to be options for ability score increases in that. And then whichever third you choose, maybe strength, I would guess. That does make a lot more sense than tying the ability scores to the species instead. So I do like that aspect.
And so those feats are now in a category called origin feats, appropriately enough, because you get them as a part of your character origin. Now, even though they're in that category, Later on, if you decide to go deeper into feats, you could potentially choose other origin feats for your character as well.
Okay, so that just means the feats that you have available at level 1 from your background, you have the option of going back and choosing other level 1 feats in place of your ability score improvement levels. So that makes sense. I do like that as well. Especially since this update to the player's handbook is a lot more feat centric, especially since I think the ability score improvement uh, option is a feat in itself. So making that a feat and then tying it into all of this makes a lot of sense and will increase player diversity, at least character wise.
But to start, each person gets just one origin feat that's provided by their background. In addition to the proficiencies your background is providing, as well as the ability score adjustment. Now, those ability score adjustments to me are really juicy because of the flexibility that we provide. And this is a flexibility that goes beyond anything that we previewed in Unearthed Arcana. So what we now do in each background is we provide 3 ability options. And then you as a player decide, am I going to put +2 in one of those 3, and you choose which of the 3, and then +1 in one of the other 2, or am I going to do +1 in all 3? So here's an example. The Acolyte, if you decided your character, whatever class you're a part of, spent their formative years serving in a
The Acolyte.
temple in some capacity, you could choose Acolyte. And the Acolyte background tells you that the 3 abilities that you have the option to adjust are intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And you have total freedom in which of those you decide gets the +2, which one gets a +1, or if you maybe don't want to make that choice and just give +1 to all 3.
Right.
We did this because we want.
I do like the design aspect of that, but I wonder if they have it written into, or they have a written part to where you can do different ability scores if the player doesn't approve of the ones in the specific background. I imagine that is probably that would probably fall under the DMG and modifying or creating new backgrounds for the players to have an option of. But we'll see what they say later.
Backgrounds interlock with as many appropriate classes as possible. Previously, when we previewed this approach to backgrounds of them providing ability score adjustments, one of the downsides of the playtest version is it kind of hard-locked the backgrounds to specific classes.
Yeah.
And we did not want to proceed with that because in some ways that was recreating the exact problem that we were getting away from 2014 Species, because in 2014 these ability score adjustments existed inside the playable species, and one of the reasons we moved it out of there is we didn't like how that drove certain species to be combined with certain classes. We wanted people to feel more free to mix and match.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, so I do like that they changed that.
And so here, rather than just recreate the same restriction, we now do have a little bit of a restriction, but you have tremendous amount of flexibility within it. I mean, because you have 3 of the game's 6 abilities to play with, no matter which background you choose. And really, it's just which 3 changes from background to background. And we made sure that there was a broad range of character building options in the different backgrounds to support many different character builds. Like if I jump ahead in the chapter to the guide, for instance, the guide's 3 abilities are dexterity, constitution, and wisdom. That combo means the guide is actually a happy background for a number of different classes. Particularly,
And the guide would make a very good ranger, or potentially a very good druid.
because everyone is happy to have constitution. Really, any background that has constitution as one of the 3 will work with pretty much any class. And this was something very much on our minds as we created these trios in each of the backgrounds to really make sure that the 16 backgrounds in this book provide a huge array of character building options. And now if someone wants to go beyond the 16 background options in the player's handbook, the new Dungeon Master's Guide provides guidance under the DM's supervision on creating additional backgrounds. But in the player's handbook itself, there are these 16 to choose from. There are a few backgrounds that share the feats that they offer because we did not want to force people to choose a certain background
because that was optimal.
For certain feats. Now, there are a number of feats that are, only one background offers that feat. But there are a few, and Alert is a great example of them, where the feat is offered by more than one background.
Right.
And like I said, you'll probably be able to create new backgrounds with the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Skilled is a similar one as well.
Yes, particularly because the skilled feat is so open-ended. All of these combinations of options, feats, the ability score adjustments, the proficiencies, also the starting equipment that the backgrounds provide, mean that each background is a package of very distinct options from the other backgrounds. Of course, you can dig deeper into feats if you decide to at higher levels. When everyone reaches 4th level, they get ability score increase, just as they did in the 2014 Player's Handbook. But ability score increase is now itself a feat. And just like in 2014, you have the option of taking that feat or selecting a different one. And because we now have given everyone a taste of feats at 1st level, we wanted to make sure that this book had more feats available, which is why there are 75 of them in this book.
Which is a lot.
So that if you do decide to go into the fun customization world of feats, there's more there for you to play with, and the feats have all been enhanced, in some cases completely redesigned. And then there's the whole other half of your origin, your species.
Right, and we've got a lot of new things in the species. We've got new additions. So
yeah, so that's all the background and feat stuff, I imagine. So now they're going to talk about species for the rest of the video. So I do like the idea of backgrounds and the feats, which sounds like we're going to have a lot of background options and a bunch of feat options. And I imagine it'll be pretty easy to create your own backgrounds. So that'll be good for player options.
So the Orc has joined, Goliaths have joined, and
the Aasimar.
Orcs,
And
Goliaths, Aasimar.
Those 3 brand new options, and they join, of course, classic options.
I was talking about in my last video how it looks like the Goliaths have like scars as their tattoos. And it looks like that's true for some of these, but on others, they actually look like tattoos. So I'm curious if the species will go into that at all. But who knows, maybe not. Because it looks like the purple skinned Goliath there has like writing or runes or something, probably in giant on their skin, which is interesting. So I wonder if these tattoos are no longer, well, they could be because of the way that the scar looking ones are. I don't know. I have questions about that.
Like human, elf, halfling, gnome, the tiefling, the dragonborn.
Azamar. There's Azamar art there. Or, okay, they might all be Azamar there. Specifically two with wings. Actually, there's one up in the very top.
And,
Oh, there's one. There's one at the very top, under where it says players. Things too. So, you'll look kind of.
are still with us as well. And every one of these species has been revisited, has been enhanced. A number of these enhancements people got to see in the Unearthed Arcana process, with like the Dragonborn having an enhanced breath weapon, and then when they get to higher level, then gaining the ability to sprout wings and fly. And even humans and halflings have been revisited and in some of their traits redesigned.
The Dragonborn are super Dragonborn. The Goliaths are very Goliath because now they're tied to giants. Not surprisingly, if you have the background a background being a cloud giant in your heritage, then you can kind of, Misty Step away, teleport away, because you're more of a trickster. But it's all based off like hill giant, storm, stone. All of it has different abilities that you can choose from.
And that is a part of the theme that we had with the species, which was really lean into the fantasy of each one. This is why dwarves now have.
Oh, this art is fantastic. If you look at this guy here, got a beard tattoo on his arm, which is really cool. Actually, wait, this one does too. Neat. I like that. And the beards on these dwarves are fantastic. Also, interestingly enough, the female dwarves in here do not have beards. Instead, they have braided hair. Very nice art piece. There's a lot to digest.
Tremor sense
Which
that
is
they
amazing.
can use a certain number of times a day, where we
The tremor sense, yeah, that's a
again
great ability
wanting to
for
lean
dwarves.
harder into what is the resonant fantasy of each of these peoples, and part of that with dwarves, with their connection to the earth. Well, let's give them this really remarkable ability a certain number of times per day to sense things through the earth itself. Their dark vision has also gotten better. Dwarves and orcs both have dark vision out to 120 feet.
Okay,
in
awesome.
the new Player's Handbook. Really driving home that certain peoples have spent, at least their ancestors have spent more time underground than some of the other peoples. Humans, I mentioned, have been redesigned with the origin feats in the game in mind, because now if you choose human, you get to choose an additional origin feat for your character. So you'll not only get the origin feat of your background, but also one of your choice.
That will allow a lot of variety for human characters.
And humans now each day start off with heroic inspiration.
Which is actually, it sounds a lot more useful than it was in any of the playtests. Excuse me. So, that could be a really, really powerful ability for humans.
That's right. Also, people will see that because we want each species to really bring its own fantasy to life, they're very asymmetrical in
All
how
these
we have
gnomes.
designed them. So some of them have choice points in them where, you mentioned the Goliath earlier, where you might be picking a type of giant that you're associated with, or, Dragonborn have their different breath weapon options. But then we have others like the halfling, the dwarf, the orc, where there aren't choice points like that because their fantasy didn't demand that in the design, but it's also because we did not want every single one to have the same complexity level. Just as our classes and subclasses have different complexity
Elves.
levels, the species have different complexity levels as well.
So we talk about a lot about meeting that fantasy, that wish fulfillment. Mechanically, that's done as well in action economy. The Goliath, being that it is now tied closer to giants, you can get big. Once you hit a certain level, you can go one size larger. But you can do this as a bonus action. You're not taking a full action
That's
to
good.
have that happen for you. You're just getting big and then possibly
Bonus action
attacking and
enlarge.
terrifying a group. Dragonborn is the same thing, and this was a change that we saw in a previous book, but you can now use your breath weapon. Not only does it get more powerful over time, but if you take the attack action, one of those attacks can be the breath weapon.
Absolutely.
So you're not sacrificing, if you're a fighter, a bunch of your attacks, that could have been possibly more effective by using the breath weapon. You're just layering it on to what you can already do.
And another example of us really deepening the fantasy and giving people more options is in the Aasimar, where before you had to pick a single celestial revelation, and that was true for your character forever. You now get to change that choice every time you use it, because we figured, well, an Aasimar who is descended from
change.
celestials sure might have some days where they're in the mood to shine with light, but they might also have some days where they're more on the vengeful end of the celestial spectrum and choose one of the other celestial revelation options.
So significant changes to species. We've got several more species to work with and a lot of layered on abilities that kind of hit that, again, that wish fulfillment of like, this is what I want. I want to be a big character, a big Goliath. I can get big. Bonus action, I'm huge. Now I'm just going to pummel.
The character creation chapter in this book includes a sidebar that explains how to use backgrounds and species from older books.
This will be good.
Because over the last decade, there have been several different approaches to where you get your ability score increase.
That'll be specifically good for all the monsters of the multiverse species and the ones from like Spelljammer and all the ones that have come out before that aren't going to be in this book.
You get a feat or not. We have a rule in the character creation chapter on how to use backgrounds or species from other books that don't appear in this book. So any species or background that appears in this book that also appeared in an earlier book, the version in the new player's handbook is now the canonical version. But if there's, say, a species or background in an older book that is not in the new player's handbook and you would still like to use it, you can. And again, the character creation chapter provides guidance on how you can.
The new player's handbook is available for pre-order right now on D&D Beyond. You can find that.
Okay, well, that's the video on Feats, backgrounds, and species in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Looks like Wizards of the Coast is releasing a bunch of videos this week, so I will cover all those videos that do come out in the next few days. If you like this video and want more content like this, please feel free to like the video and subscribe if you want to listen to more from me. Until then, have a great day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.